Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Big episode today. We're going to go over Ohio State has officially made the 2020 college football playoff. Our general reactions today. We'll probably do a few shows between now and the semifinal. We usually, in a typical season, we would get many more weeks to discuss this. This is an 11-day turnaround, so that's going to be crazy in its own right. So I think kind of like our breakdown should be like today's is kind of like just general thoughts, our feelings, maybe talk about some of the stuff, some of the complaining, even though today's complaining wasn't as bad as it leading up to the game, because Notre Dame has felt some of the wrath of the complaining now.
Yeah.
How bad they looked yesterday. And then probably on our next show, which we'll probably film, I would assume we'll do in between the weekend, in between Christmas and New Year's, we'll probably actually break the game down a lot. I would like to go position group by position group of both teams and just maybe give an edge. Who's got an edge? Who doesn't got an edge? What does Ohio State need to do at each individual position group to win this game going forward? And then the final show will just be about we'll talk about both games and just kind of give our predictions.
Yes, sir.
All right. So just general thoughts. I think after the win yesterday, as the game was going on, you start thinking, I mean, man, how much is the committee going to dock Ohio State if they come back and win the game? How much are they going to dock Ohio State about Olave being out? And, the offense obviously looked out of sorts. And then as the night started going on into the Clemson game and you started seeing that score, then you started feeling really good. That's like, they can't keep Notre Dame in with a loss like this without putting Ohio State in. That was my feeling at that point. Yeah. So I would say after the Buckeye game, I was probably 60-40 that they're going to make it. I was more nervous at the end of that game than I thought I would have been, but that's just how the game went. And then I was at 80-20 after the Clemson Notre Dame game, and then as the evening went on, you saw Alabama and Florida. Even though Florida, tried to make a comeback on it.
Yeah, Florida came back.
It just definitely, I felt by the end of the night that Ohio State was definitely in. Just so your general thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. That's kind of where I was. I might have been a little bit more optimistic after the Northwestern game. I mean, I realized, there's no way around it. Justin Fields played his worst game. Ryan Day called his worst game. But Trey Sermon ran for over 330 yards. And it was total game control in the second half. You just had to get the points to finally, even up with what you were doing to Northwestern. So, I mean, really, they score a touchdown on their opening drive and then they get a field goal the rest of the game. So Ohio State, I mean, they were a lot more impressive. So I felt fairly confident that they were going to, they were getting in, which of course they did. Notre Dame did not look good against Clemson. So I don't know. I mean, how did you feel actually like performance of the game? Like, are you concerned? And I know we're going to talk more about Clemson, but Justin Fields against like exotic blitzes and Harry Miller, I mean, good kid. He's flashed. He's shown flashes this year that he's good, but just there's a lot of times that he does not pick up a blitzer.
I think Harry Miller next season is going to be fine. It's just, you could definitely tell even with him coming in early, but because of COVID, he is one of the spots where not getting appropriate practice time, not getting appropriate time with Mick. I know the kid's strong. I mean, everybody talks about how strong he is, but I mean, there's just a difference between being strong and being football strong. And you can tell he doesn't get the right leverage on people. He's not used to seeing all the blitz pickups. All that stuff is going to come with time. And that's stuff, first of all, that stuff he would have issue with already as a freshman. It's stuff he's really having issues with in a COVID season even though technically he's not a freshman, he played a lot last year, but he's still young. He still hasn't gotten everything. I mean, and he hasn't gotten to make those improvements of a sophomore because he hasn't gotten the opportunities in the practice arena to make those improvements. So I mean, So I'm concerned about him. Yes. On the Fields thing, that definitely concerns me. That's going to be in an 11-day setup. Brent Venables is going to be all about that. We're going to throw a lot of different things. We'll throw the kitchen sink at him. We're going to disguise coverages. We're going to do all kinds of little stuff on Fields. And I think we all know what Fields is as an athlete. Now, that could work two ways for Clemson. That could be Justin Fields continuing to regress, as we've seen possibly against Indiana and Northwestern, where, that in a game like that against a Clemson, that's going to be a real concern. Or we could see him just completely turn the page and that, this is for the ring now. And, he did really good against Clemson last year for the most part. So,
he has to be able to trust other people over the middle of the field, though. That's something that, if it's not Garrett Wilson down the field, I know Garrett Wilson's always open, but there are some times like Julian Fleming, like he should have, or the tight ends, as just like it didn't seem like he had any confidence or trust, like he wasn't looking to get them the ball.
Yeah. To me, the difference between Fields this year and Fields last year, outside of the obvious, they haven't played, they didn't get a lot of practice time and all that stuff, and not playing the same amount of games. They didn't have the game reps outside of that stuff, which I think is all affecting him right now. Last year, he had a running game that he had a running game that him and Ryan Day believed in. That was a go-to type of thing. That's something to help you with. I don't think that they've had that type of trust in the running game this year. And I hope what we saw yesterday now gives them that trust, because if they go in the mindset that they can run on Clemson, and Clemson has shown different times this year where they can be ran on,
right.
Trey Sermon and that offensive line yesterday proved that they could run the ball. And Trey Sermon's looking really healthy right now. The line is looking really good run blocking. Give them the ball and hopefully develop that. Hopefully they start trusting the running game, because that could open up a lot in the passing game for Fields and the receivers.
Right. And that's the thing. If they have that trust in the run game, and I know Trey Sermon's not getting 20 yards a run or, whatever it was against Northwestern. I know he's not going to replicate that against Clemson, but if he's getting 6 yards per carry,
look what Dobbins got.
Really good shape
against them. Yeah, and
that's true. Yeah, and I'm not sure. Is there one starting safety? Is he out for the first half? I thought I saw somewhere that he might Nolan Turner, that he got a targeting in the second half. I'm not 100%. I'll have to look that up.
We were watching the game, but we weren't watching the game. It was on, but we were talking and just goofing around here. Yeah. So I missed a lot of stuff in the second half. I watched the first half a lot closer, but then the game kind of got out of hand. It was just it was more on kind of background noise.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I heard. I got to look into that a little bit further, but that could be big. For Ohio State, if, they're down a starting safety, Clemson is. Yeah. Hopefully you get your safeties all back for that game. That was like bare bones, that room yesterday.
The one thing that made me nervous this game that we did see against Clemson last year is that they had a very hard time translating red zone opportunities into touchdowns, and and there was a lot of things that happened in the Clemson game last year, but I've always circled that. To me, that's the biggest thing. Dobbins hurting himself, horrible. The two bad reffing, the roughing or the targeting, and then the fumble that got overturned, horrible. But if a couple of those red zone opportunities turn into 6 over 3, we win the game. And so
absolutely.
And you can only do the things you can control, and those are opportunities that you were in control of. So
right.
So you have to translate those into 6 points, and we saw that yesterday. So that makes me a little nervous that, if that opportunity, the way Sermon was running, I wish he would have gotten more opportunities in the red zone, because I'm like, let them see if they can bull rush one into the house right here.
Hell, like how he was running yesterday against those guys. It wasn't just like elusive stuff. He was running with purpose too. Like he was running through people.
all his big runs were up the middle. So like there was something there in the middle that they were seeing. And I know things get tighter down in the red zone, but even the couple opportunities he was getting in the red zone, he was still getting like 5 yards at a pop. And it's like, let him, I mean, he was running power. It wasn't even fast. He was running powerful. And so, I mean, they're
just going to have to put DeJuan Jones in as their goal line running back.
Yeah. I don't know. So, I mean, that was kind of my concern with that. And because we saw that against Clemson last year, and that makes me nervous because that's always been my top issue with the game last year, is because to me, you always control what you control and everything else. And if you don't do the things you control correctly, that's when that other stuff really, really can hurt.
Right.
You, the other things. And, I mean, those were bad calls by the referees, and by the official booth. But if you score touchdowns and not score field goals, do they really matter at the end of the day?
I mean, it's a non-factor. If you convert on two of those and you change those into touchdowns. So, that first drive of the game, the drop pass by Dobbins, either one, either one of those, you convert on, two of those three, and that game's significantly different. And it probably is a no factor. I mean, I'm not going to take any, I'm not excusing it. I mean, they were still bad calls, but
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm kind of with you. I mean, if they did keep trying to get Justin going on the pass game though, I mean, what would Sermon have ended up with? Like, they weren't even touching the guy. Like,
I don't know. I mean,
they could have easily yards.
Yeah, he could have easily ran for 400 plus yards yesterday. I understand what the thought, and I kind of mentioned this when we were watching the game yesterday, is sometimes coaches, everybody, including us, always are run the ball, the running's working. Sometimes it's hard when you have a guy like Justin Fields. Jim Tressel had the same issue in the 2006 national championship game with Trey. That was his Heisman Trophy winner. And sometimes it's just in a coach's mindset. It's like this is the guy that brought me here, and now I'm going to take the ball away from him and the biggest opportunities. And sometimes you get blinded by how well the running game was working big time. I mean, if they had, after the first quarter, if their mindset completely just changed then and said, all right, it's Sermon first, Sermon second, and then, maybe we'll throw it on the third if we have to. But he easily runs for 400 yards. I mean, he hits 330 at the end of the game, and you feel like if they would have just started maybe 5 minutes earlier with really letting him run the ball, I mean, he probably would have had the 400 then. I mean, he was running for 20 yards a pop. I mean, they were in nothing they couldn't even stop him.
Yeah, no. I mean, he ran with a purpose, that's for sure. And I think a lot of it though, and we can't understate or undersell that Ohio State, that was 6 games. That was game number 6 for them. Ryan Day, he knows if you're going to if you're getting to the next round, Justin's the guy you're riding with. So he's got to, maybe he knows he needed more meaningful reps. He needs to throw the ball, see how he reacts to different things, because there will be a point. I mean, I hope they can run all over Clemson, but Brent Venables, he is a very smart defensive coordinator. He will come up with some sort of adjustment for the run if it's working like that.
Yeah. But
then just throw over the top on them.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have Olave back. We found that out for sure today. Ryan Day said most everybody will be back now that Big Ten's changed their rules. Officially got changed today. It's now 17 days. He said most everybody will be back. There might be a couple that are going to be right there, but it's not going to be Olave. We know that now. So hopefully, same with Jackson Smith, Najib, that he's there back too. It's just, even though, I liked what I saw, Julian Fleming, he got his drops out of the way early, and then he was fine. He was looking really good, and I just, that was kind of scaring me too. It seemed like then Wilson or Fields was concentrating too much on Garrett and too much on Jameson. And it's just like, Julian Fleming has caught some balls for you now. I mean, he had a couple good sideline catches, go back to him. He was open a couple times in the middle of the field too. And he's right there.
The one, that just did that the trick play that they tried to pull out that he, badly underthrew Garrett Wilson, that would have been 6. Like I was looking at the replay of that earlier today, and all the corners bit on Garrett Wilson on that, and Fleming was just wide open. So
yeah.
And then, like Williams, there was a couple times, and I know Jameson Williams, all they've asked of him really is kind of to run down the field, create, get those guys away from Olave and Wilson, create those openings. But there's definitely there's still a lot of work that needs to be done there. I'm glad that he got put in the position where he was seeing more targets, and now he knows more, that he can work on. But like that second interception, just that killed me, man. How did it, like, there's just no need to try to break that route up like he did.
Yeah,
but,
and and Fields was thinking that he was just going to run a typical Olave route, the route would have been open. It would actually have been a good play call, and then and then I see, I did see people saying, they should have ran the ball again there, and they probably should have when you want to go back into hindsight, but it would actually, on a typical, Chris Olave playing, that's a good play call because he easily catches that because that's his go-to. I do want to throw out too, just so everybody just remembers the fact that, I think you texted me last night. So Brian Hartline has been out since Monday. Mm-hmm. Is that what you said?
That's what I read was, so he didn't have pretty much all week. He didn't have to do anything with these guys.
So, Chris Olave's out, Jackson Smith is out. And now, you're expecting some other guys to step up, but they don't have their receivers coach neither. So I think that's got to be now taken into consideration. Brian Hartline is going to be back, and with him being Monday, it's only a 10-day sit out. So he'll be back later this week. Yes. And so, they will be, he will be at least be there for, the receiving core, for the Clemson game. And, you could tell even on the Sermon runs that a couple of those young receivers, they're not used to going and engaging people on blocks and stuff like that. Yeah. And like a couple of those Sermon runs would have been 6 if he got behind Juice and got behind Julian. And it's like, go run up there and block the guy and quit trying to dance with him. And,
right. Like all you got to do is just get your body in front of the guy so that he has to physically try to, push you out of his way to get to Trey, and Trey would have sprung him for another
scored on
yards.
A couple of those. So.
I honestly think that Jameson Williams won at the very beginning or early in that game. I think he would have been gone if Williams would have just ran up and blocked the guy.
Yeah.
Instead of just dancing around trying to be in his way.
Yeah.
But they looked good. Defense looked good. I was a little surprised how soft they got on 3rd and long. So
yeah. I think they thought they were going to be able to get to Ramsey more than they did on some of those. He's a good quarterback, and you were down a couple of defensive linemen. But the second half, I saw a lot of bad comments about our defense, and on Facebook and Twitter. It's our defense is not the reason why they were. They gave up 10 points. And the second half was literally they, 3 punts, 3 takeaways, and a turnover on down. So what more do you want from a defense in the championship half when you're out there to go? They barely gave up any yards in the second half, and
right. What stands out to me was in that first half, Proctor fell on Ramsey's run. I think it was the second half that they had him down to a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, something like that, and they threw a pass right over Sevyn Banks that I didn't think. The guy caught it, so what can you do? But outside of that, a lot of just what bothered me, was just how soft they were on those 3rd and longs.
And it seemed like they even tightened that up as the second half was going on. That they were, getting up on the guys a lot more. And that was, the first half that kind of bothered me too. It's just I was thinking I didn't see any athletes in Arizona or not Arizona, Northwestern's receiving core. It's just just come up and bump them, force them to beat you along. But it is what it is. They had their game plan for that. And as I said, they tightened up a lot in the second half. Proctor played a lot better in the second half. He was he was starting early in the game. He was kind of having a little bit of that hooker issue from, the Indiana game when he's biting on stuff. And I'm just like, God, we're going to have to go through another game of this.
Right.
And he seemed like he got a pick in the second half. I mean, he did drop a pick 6 earlier in the game, but it's like,
he did.
I'm like, he started staying back and was reacting to the ball being thrown. And that's a good thing. That's a good halftime adjustment. He made his halftime adjustments. Like, whoever got into his head, whether it was Kerry Combs or the safeties coach, Matt Barnes, was like, hey man, you got to stay back.
Right.
You're the home run dude. It worked in the second half. So,
I mean, whoever's getting the more playing time though against Clemson, like it's going to be on them because Michael Penix is a fine quarterback. Nobody is going to be able to stress those deep safeties like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry if you hear dogs barking in the background. I think I got some food that just got delivered, but yeah.
It's just different. They definitely, with Lawrence, I mean, we'll definitely have to get into when we start really getting to position groups on the next episode. I mean, that's definitely a big thing. You got to stay back. He's going to attempt to look you off. He's not going to read into his receivers. And, he hit a couple big touchdown passes. The one in the first half I can really think of that were right there in the middle of the field, that like Notre Dame safeties were nowhere to be seen. And the guy was running free right up the middle.
Well, that's what he loves. He loves to hit Amari Rodgers or one of those tight ends on like an RPO or a play action, something. So, yeah, they got to be ready for it. Hooker, Proctor, Latham Ransom. I mean, whoever's getting the snaps, Ronnie Hickman, they got to be ready.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get more into the Clemson stuff on our next episode. The breaking it down. So just on your thoughts. So we've heard a couple more things. There's some complaining. Now Brian Kelly, who made the playoffs, is complaining about 6 games not being enough in the. I mean, what do you want? You want to, after the last game, you want to play Clemson again on the 2-3 side? I mean,
right. I know I don't know. I mean, I'm still under the school of thought, and there are two schools of thought on this, and they're both right. Like Ohio State, yes, they will be more fresh than these other teams. That's correct. There's no other way around it. Their bodies haven't get put through, the meat grinder that the rest of these teams have. So that's true. But you're also looking at they have a fraction, probably less than half the snaps of these other teams. I know they've had a ton of practice time because all these games have got canceled, but that's something that we do have some weaknesses on our team that I'm sure Ryan Day would have loved more game time to try to get things ironed out.
And they're going to be more fresh, but emotionally, I don't know if they're more fresh. I mean, let's be real about some stuff. Is that there's two different even with Notre Dame. There was just two different mindsets in the Southern conferences, and that the Big Ten players had to deal with this year. And I think there's a lot of that's right now is my biggest fear is not only the game reps, they're bringing in a little bit more emotional baggage just because, they had to deal with much stricter protocols coming down the stretch. And the Big Ten gave them they basically didn't give them an open window. They gave them a crack of a window open that you got to get a season through. And, in a part of the country that is dealing very hard right now with, COVID-19. So you were asking a lot of these kids, and I know people like, well, they're adults. Some people want to throw that stuff out there. And these are still college kids. I remember the stuff I did in college, and people could say, well, they're playing for bigger things than what just normal people. An 18, 19, 20-year-old person doesn't necessarily think of it that way. And you're putting a lot of strictness on it. And if you would have just kept the original schedule or even moved that schedule back a couple weeks to maybe the end of September, everything's fine right now. They would have got close to 10 games in, just like everybody else would have, and they would have had a couple built-in bye weeks. So I got an issue with people that vilify 18 to 21 year olds about going out and seeing people like that. That has to be, I mean, it's college. Like you said, I understand they're playing for more and they got the protocols on their teams and, they need to be responsible adults. But at the same time,
they're kids. They want to see their friends. So,
Yeah.
They want to see their girlfriends. They want to see their families. That's not, we're not going to vilify kids for being kids. That's just.
And a lot of these kids, I mean, a lot of these guys, I mean, they're coming from all around the country. I mean, how do you want to be somebody from, California, Texas, that's going to Columbus, Ohio, and now you can't even go out. You can't even do anything. You can't even, the only friends you really probably have are on the football team, and you can't go see them in after hours because
right, you can't.
There's too much risk. They went to the Woody Hayes, they practiced, and then they went home to their dorms or to their apartments, wherever they were living. And that was it. And that's, you're asking a lot there. And there's a lot of homesickness that gets involved. And you're telling these kids that are several thousand miles away from their families that, and during a pandemic, when you have to worry about stuff like that, and you're now not only not even getting to do stuff that you want to do, but you're worrying about your mom, your dad, your grandparents that are, living several thousand miles away from you and hoping to God they don't get sick. So it's like, there's just a lot of emotional baggage that was put on them. And, the Big Ten, when they, what they did at the end of the day, probably didn't help any of that stuff. So like,
no.
Now on the other side of, when you said there's two sides of it, now the other side of it, the more fresh side of it, and now I kind of like went back yesterday thinking about this. I think the reason why Dabo was so like dead set, at first I was thought he's dead set. He doesn't want Ohio State in because he's nervous about possibly losing to Notre Dame. I rethought that last night. I think he knew he was going to go beat up Notre Dame, and he got a better feel for Notre Dame after that loss, and now he had his players back. I think he was nervous about playing Ohio State in 2-3 on the fact that he knows Ohio State's talented. I mean, he's recruited a lot of these same kids. Right. He knows Ryan Day is a talented coach who handled his defensive coordinator for the most part last year in that game. And I think that makes him nervous because Ohio State, who's been very bland in a lot of games this year, the next 11 days, they might come up with some exotic things that be like, we can run this at some people now.
Right. Yeah. And I agree with that. I definitely like that. Maybe that's another side of it too, is, Ohio State, they don't have all those game reps, but they don't have all those game reps. It's not on.
They don't have a lot of film.
Right. So I could see that it's going to be hard maybe to game plan against them because they got all that talent. And I mean, that's probably like, oh crap, when, the final game, Trey Sermon, runs for 330 yards. That's just something that they have to really prepare to stop the run.
Yeah. Exactly.
We have a legitimate threat there.
Yeah. I now that I kind of go back and think of it, I think that might be part of it. That I don't know how much, and I'm not going to say I saw some Ohio State fans that he's scared of Ohio State. First of all, anybody who's never lost to Ohio State is not scared of Ohio State, but he has a respect. I do think he has a respect for Ohio State because he's recruited a lot of these same kids. He knows how good they are. He knows how good Ohio State's a program is. He knows how good Ryan Day is as coach. He got to see him last year. Ohio State does some things that challenged his defense last year, and if Ohio State would have turned a couple of those field goals into touchdowns, he would have lost that game. And
right. And that's what I know people like you said, I know they like to give them a hard time, but we'll break it down. We'll say it one time. Hopefully we don't have to say it again. He has 2 national titles. He's 3-0 against Ohio State. He's been in how many national title games? Look how talented his roster is. Dabo Swinney isn't afraid to play anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
He's annoying as hell. Don't get me wrong, but he knows he has a good team. He's not scared to play anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Now, just on the games in general. So we got thrown a little bit of a curveball today. We thought if we were going to be getting 2-3, that we were going to be going to Texas. And, Alabama was going to be playing in New Orleans. But it turns out Alabama wants to play in Texas. They want to go to Arlington. After we found out late last night that Jerry Jones came in and with his bags of money and bribed
got himself the Rose Bowl. Yeah, but the way they made it sound, I'm not even sure that Alabama choose it or did they give that to Alabama? Because the way the Barta was talking was that, they felt like it was a fair home field advantage. Like they needed to be rewarded for being the number 1 team because there are 16,000 fans allowed to be there. So that's why Alabama ended up there. So I'm not even sure they chose that game.
I heard that, but I've also heard that they chose it that Saban feels there's better control in Arlington than there is in New Orleans, that he was really nervous about COVID and Bourbon Street and the kids going out and doing stuff. And
yeah, that's
he can control the situation better. Plus, they get more fans. And so, I mean, I think that, I mean, that's always been the protocols that they choose it. I mean, 16,000 fans. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know that it's going to be split right down the middle. And I mean,
Notre Dame, Notre Dame is going to get 8,000 people to go there. So.
Yeah. And they're going to get it just like it would have been. I mean, actually, probably, I mean, if you think about it, Clemson might have been more at a disadvantage playing at the 16,000. And because, I mean, even though they probably would have sold their 8,000 allotment, Ohio State easily would have sold their 8,000 allotment. And
True.
If there was any leftovers, they would have, just like Notre Dame and Alabama aren't going to have problems with that 8,000 allotment to each team. So
you're right. Yeah, I bet it's going to be weird for Clemson though, because I'm sure most of their games have been played in front of more than 3,000 people. So
yeah,
it's probably going to be strange for them playing in that Sugar Bowl game.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whereas Ohio State, we're used to it. I mean, that would be cool to have actual fans instead of just parents, cheering.
Yeah, we're going to actually, this will be the first time. I mean, I know it's going to be fans that give a lot of money to the school, but for the first time, there's going to be actual fans in the stadium for a Buckeye game this year. So that will be kind of cool. The last two times we played in New Orleans, we've won both those games. And the last two times Clemson's played in there, they've lost both those games. So that's
hey man, it could happen. I'm not.
And our national championship run in 2014 started in New Orleans, so let's do it.
And it really started the Big Ten title game with a running back having a ridiculous amount of yards, which,
yeah,
just saying, it happened again. So who knows? This could be a perfect time to win a national title.
Yeah. Some of the complaining, there was definitely a lot of complaining towards Notre Dame today, too. It's that I saw somebody put up like, dear college football, quit trying to force feed Notre Dame on us. Sincerely, the college football fans.
Can they play within 3 scores of Alabama? Honestly,
I don't know. It's like, they don't have Florida's offense to go score 46 points. That's the one thing I would be a little nervous about if I was Alabama, like, playing the national championship game. Ohio State and Clemson have the talent to go score with Alabama. I don't know if they have either one of them. There's been some ups and downs in both programs this year. If they have, I don't know if necessarily Clemson has the full game reps because they've had a lot of guys in and out throughout the season.
They have too. Yeah, I know. They've been dealing with just a lot of injuries and a lot of COVID themselves. Like they got hit pretty hard, just like Ohio State did. I hope everyone's healthy. I hope everyone's at, full capacity to what their teams can do. They have everything, outside of your people that are just legitimately hurt. I don't want any excuses. I want, both teams to be fully healthy, ready to go. And next thing, because just to touch on the whole Alabama thing for myself, and this is in no way me saying I think Clemson's going to beat Ohio State, but this feels a lot like 2018 where everyone's like, oh, this is the greatest Alabama team ever. And then Clemson just goes and beats the crap out of them. I mean, I don't think that pass defense, I'm not sure that that's going to stress Trevor Lawrence out at all.
Yeah. And again, what you're worried about Justin Fields with is exotic blitzes, but that's where the running game can help them. If Trey Sermon's ready to go and if the line's ready to run block, that's where now Justin Fields could be. If Ryan Day comes in with a different mindset, maybe that, hey, I'm going to let my running game play a little bit, then, and Olave is back, and hopefully they don't get any more major COVID issues or any other injuries in general. But I mean, they do have a good receiving core. If Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave with a Trey Sermon could really stress Alabama's secondary and in Clemson secondary too. And
very true. Yeah, maybe that's where the 6 games. Like that might be a spot that really is going to make the difference. So is the legs of the offensive line, because they only played 6 games going, for run block purposes. Yeah. They might be able to beat up one of these defensive lines if, they've gone through a little bit more wear and tear.
And, knock on wood, I mean, outside the COVID issues against Michigan State, I mean, they've been healthy. offensive line. I mean, we haven't had any major injury. I mean, Wyatt's gotten banged up a little, but he's, came back, and, Munford is at the healthiest he's ever been. MPF has played lights out this year. He looks phenomenal. And then, Myers has been extremely healthy, and same with Harry.
And you got Jones and Jones on the bench, so you feel good with those guys.
And Paris Johnson. I mean, they got a lot of depth there too. So I mean,
I
lost my headphones.
That's all right. I know they got a lot of depth, and you got some big bodies, and some guys have gotten some meaningful playing time from that Michigan State game. So that's definitely. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that could be a big advantage for Ohio State when you look at that offensive line just more fresh. They might be able to move around the defensive line a little bit easier than what they would have before.
Yeah, it'll be interesting on the same side of it. I mean, especially if we get our the ends back, how fresh both Haskell Garrett's and Tommy Togiai's legs are coming up the middle, which could be issues for Lawrence, considering how much he likes to come up into the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's actually where he did so much of his damage against the Buckeyes last year. The Buckeyes could almost come up with a different game plan this year, maybe challenge him more from the middle, and then force him back up into the middle where those guys might be waiting for him now, and actually put some big hits on him. And
I mean, it's not going to come easy. We know that. I mean, as much as you want to just beat the crap out of those guys, I don't know. I see it being a last possession game, just like the last time.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll be the underdogs, so that we'll use that to our advantage. We'll use that. I mean, we'll use the advantage that they beat us last year. It's revenge. We'll use the underdog to our advantage, and we're going to use some of the stuff Dabo said a couple of weeks ago to our advantage. And everybody, there's a lot of contingent that doesn't think Ohio State belongs there, and I mean, been there, done that. It's the years that when Ohio State does belong there that people argue that somehow Ohio State loses, but it's the years that you get all the arguments that they don't deserve to be there, from 02 to 14 to hopefully this year that and they go out and they do something remarkable and go win a national title. So,
Ryan Day's in that the golden season too. I mean, anywhere from 2 to 3 years with the team. This is usually when the new coach gets his first national title with the Buckeyes. So hopefully he keeps that rolling.
Yeah,
get a second one next year too. I mean, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I want to get the first one, but then after that, I want one of these coaches then to go win a second one. It's like, Tressel and Meyer both got the hopes up that it's like, oh, they're gonna win title after title, and Yeah,
I know. I mean, there's no way when Urban won that one in 14. I would have told you were crazy if you said that was going to be his only one he was going to get from then through 2018.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think we'll probably, unless there's anything more you want to throw out on the playoffs, I figured today was going to be pretty quick.
I think it'll be a good game.
It's a good playoffs as in names. I don't know if Notre Dame will make it a good playoff on their part. They have to do a lot different than what they did yesterday. And I'm going to say the same thing I said from last year. At the end of the day, I just want Ohio State to win, but it's definitely look like you deserve to be there, because that goes a long way of shutting people up. Because, if you play them tough, and I don't want a 2016 game. 2016 was embarrassing.
Yeah.
I can deal with losses from last year. I mean, they hurt a lot at the end of the night when you realize they're so close. I don't like looking up in the third quarter and being like, knowing the game is already over. And
tell you what, it hurts a lot the morning after the game when you're hungover and you remember that you lost also. That's a crap feeling. So hopefully we don't have to deal with that this year. But no, I mean, we're going to talk more about the Clemson game, and we'll see Notre Dame, Alabama. Things might develop, people might get hurt, something might happen, people might get COVID, you never know. So things could definitely change. But right now, what I saw, what I've seen from Notre Dame, I don't think they don't have the offense to, scare Alabama at all. I don't think they can stay within 3 scores.
Let me just say, I think the 20.5 that crazy 20.5 line for that game is more realistic than I think the 6.5 line right now for the Clemson Ohio State game. So
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I got nothing else. I feel like, we're done today, unless you got anything else to add.
nope, I'm good.
All right. Well, everyone, you have a, safe night. I'm not sure. Are we doing another one of these before Christmas?
No, we'll probably because I mean we're gonna be both busy heading up here into Christmas, and then you're off and I'm off on the weekend. So I think maybe we'll try to do an in studio show for the weekend.
Saturday or Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, do the Clemson breakdown, the position by group breakdowns. So everybody have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from us.
Enjoy your time with your families. Be safe. It's been a weird year, so everyone, just have a good holiday season. But yeah, thank you all for listening tonight. I'm John,
and I'm Mike.
OH.
IO. Well, thank you for watching here the Buckeye Bar Guys here on the Buckeye Bar Talk network. Please subscribe to the network, and when you get the little notification bell, just hit that. Hit all notifications. That way you will get alerted when all the new episodes come up. Comment, like the show, and we hope you join our community. Come join our bar.
Like, comment, share. I'm John. That's Mike. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you.